Right, so Jeremy and I have come down to Sasquatch Provincial Park, and I think Jeremy was here 10 years ago, and I've never been here, so it's all new to us. But there's a little lake down here, and there's all this fog with these, I'm guessing they're maples with moss and the fog, so it's really quite beautiful. So I'm going to grab my camera really quick and see if I can get something with these backlit branches. Yeah, it's really, really, really beautiful. This is the kind of stuff that I really enjoy photographing. Bit of a challenge, but if you can block the sun out behind a tree limb or something, and it just has a lot of atmosphere to it. Beautiful. This was one of those situations where we had absolutely fantastic light, but a really difficult time finding compositions. If any of you have ever traveled through British Columbia or to the west coast, to the rainforest, you'll know that the forests are, well, let's just say very messy. A lot of deadfall, just a lot of chaos. So finding compositions or order out of the chaos is extremely difficult. So what I did in this case is I would try to find some kind of order or patterns within the chaos, knowing full well that even though there might be a little bit of order, there's always going to be branches going the way that you don't really want them to. I would almost look at them as pattern shots. So this first image here, I quite like it. I mean, the light is just beautiful, but I tried to frame the somewhat diagonal branch in the middle here with the curving limbs on the outside of the frame, and I think it kind of works, but you know, it is very busy. I'd be the first to admit that, but the light, I think, makes up for some of that chaos. Okay, now the second image here has a little bit more order to it in that it has these two straight trees right in the center of the frame. Now, I must admit they are a little bit central, but I really didn't know what to do with them. I quite like the diagonal limbs on the left and the right. But what was interesting to me was that one of the trees in the center was slightly lighter than the other one. So the tree on the left has a bit more fog surrounding it, so it's lighter, whereas the one on the right is slightly darker. I'd be really interested to know what you guys think of these images, so be sure to leave your comments below. All right, so the light back here is absolutely sublime right now. Well, the fog keeps moving in and out, but when there's more fog, it's a bit nicer. But again, the problem is that it looks beautiful to the eye, but it's extremely busy. So I've taken a number of images of this scene here with the sweeping branches, with the moss, and then the trees in the background really set it off. But I'm not sure if it's going to interpret or not. See, the fog's starting to dissipate now, so it's not looking quite as good as it did 5 minutes ago. But I'm sure if you stood here for a few minutes, the fog would come back in again. All right, so as you can see, the fog has moved in again, and it creates a little bit more separation between the trees, and also gives it a lot more mood. But again, there's foreground trees here that are creating a bit of trouble for me because they're so close and they're not very attractive. It's the backgrounds that I find really attractive, but it's hard to get a clean view of this whole scene here. Okay, now you probably can't see this, but there's some mossy trees back here and they're really heavily backlit, but they also have, every now and then the fog will move in and out, so it's really contrasty, but it has such a beautiful shape to it with the rim lighting. So we're more or less just going for a graphic image more than anything else. It's not really about the details, it's more about the shape of the tree and the moss just being rimmed with light on the edges, so you can just kind of see the silhouette of the tree. It's a bit tricky photographing this because the sun is just blaring right in my face and down the lens, but I'm using a 7200, so I can zoom in quite a way, so I can just use my hand to shade the lens. But it's absolutely gorgeous. I really hope that these turn out, because they look, on the back of the camera they look great, but it's hard to interpret them until you actually open them up in a computer.
You would think for an old guy that I would learn from my mistakes, but it seems to take me a long time to correct those mistakes. As an example, this image here, it turned out great. There's only one problem with it: it's not sharp. And the reason why it's not sharp is because I was using a long focal length, 200 millimeters, and it was on a tripod which was on unstable ground. And whenever I've used a long focal length on unstable ground with say a delay on my timer less than 10 seconds, or if I'm not using a cable release, then there's a really good chance that it could come out blurry. And that's what happened here. I should have really been using either my cable release or a wireless release, or a delayed timer of more than 2 seconds. But of course, I thought I knew better. I used a delay of 2 seconds and it wasn't enough to settle the camera. And of course, all the shots that I took of this scene are blurry. So lesson learned: if you want ultra sharp images with a long focal length, make sure that everything is sturdy, your tripod is weighed down or sturdy enough to hold that focal length, and use a timer delay of more than 2 seconds, or even better, some kind of cable release. Now luckily I did take some other images, horizontals that I quite like of this scene, so and they're very sharp, so I could crop them if I wanted to. But I think in this case, I'll just use it as a lesson learned. All right, everybody, I think I'm going to leave it there for now for this week. I do have some more footage from this exciting area, but I think I'm going to make that into a separate video for next week. So stay tuned for that. Also, stay tuned for a couple of exciting announcements that I have coming up. As always, please be sure to give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and if you enjoy the content of my channel, please be sure to subscribe. All right, everybody, thanks ever so much again, and I will catch you next week. Happy shooting.